What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Lumix Live. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. A lot of cool, like, kind of little upgrades that I've done to the stream itself that we're going to talk about. I've got some very cool lenses, actually, to talk about. In fact, we're actually using one right now. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then we're going to go through with the S1 Mark II and actually go over some of the comments and kind of questions I've seen through things like our Discord and over on Reddit and stuff like that. So I want to kind of use this as a way to kind of clear up some of those questions I think that some people have been having, or at least that I've been seeing that people have been having. And actually a couple of those were asked in the chat as well here. So we're going to go through those. I'll show you in the menus how to do this kind of stuff. But before we dive into that part of the conversation, a couple things. If you are new to these streams, make sure to tag at Lumix USA. So start typing at Lumix USA and then type your question, because I can see that on my end. It just makes it easier to be able to get through between side conversations and then things that you're actually asking me to answer. The other is kind of just a little bit of a background. This is the live streams that we do. We try to keep them on as constant as we can for every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, where you get to talk to us directly. You get to get your questions asked, your answers, as best as we can answer them, from the brand. You don't have to be worrying about, is this something that people are speculating about or guessing about online, who have no clue what they're talking about in most cases. So you get to ask us the questions and actually get an answer from the brand. The biggest thing that we want to make sure of is that when you are commenting or participating in the chat or in the comment sections afterwards, that you're respectful to others. We don't want, kind of repeat comments or spamming the chat or anything like that. If you do that, you're going to get either put in timeout or we'll just straight up kick you off the chat. But if you have a question, tag at Lumix USA. This way we can get to it. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can between the demos that I've got kind of prepped to kind of show you guys and answer some of your questions. Last, before we dive into this, I want to remind those in the United States about Lumix Pro Services. We have Lumix Pro Services here in the United States for the red tier and the platinum tier. Red tier is free, so if you purchase a new camera, you can get yourself registered by either following the QR code right below me or a link down in the description. Get yourself registered, get you a 3-year manufacturer warranty added on top of what you get. You also get access into the portal, so should you have any problems or should you need to use service and support, you have an access portal there instead of having to go through general Panasonic tech support. If you're someone who prefers much higher level service and support, or you just prefer to have that, you can upgrade into the platinum tier. Platinum membership is a paid level service. That's going to get you that 3-year manufacturer warranty as well, get you access to the portal. But on top of it, you're going to get things like 2-day repairs with next day shipping both ways, 20% off out of warranty repairs if you drop a camera, lens, break something like that. That's an accidental thing that wouldn't be covered on a warranty. You get a 20% off repair fee on that. You also get access to a membership hotline, so if you prefer to try to speak to somebody, you can always use that number. And you get a pretty cool little welcome gift, which is, I believe, still a Peak Design custom strap for it. So if you're in the United States, I encourage you to take a look, get your cameras registered. If you're out of the United States, we do have a link to the global portal down there. You can take a look at if it's available within your region and get yourself registered there. So with that, let's take a look at some of the questions first before we talk about these really sick lenses that I'm working with right now. So can we demonstrate how to live stream on the GH7? Yeah, that's going to be, so David, that's going to be one of the things that we'll talk about when we go into the demo section. So probably in about like 10-15 minutes, we'll jump into that. Will the new camera support Lumix Sync app? Yes. No, not Sync app. Lumix Sync app support on newer cameras is pretty much done after the Lumix Lab came out. So all of the newer cameras, you're going to need to use Lumix Lab to support with that. When the S5 Mark II and the S5 Mark II X and the GH7 get the Lumix Flow app update, you'll be able to use Lumix Flow as well, but Sync is going to be for the older cameras for support. Yeah. Let's see here. Any update about focus stacking, shifting speed with the half stack, with the partially stacked sensor with a big flash? I haven't gotten any updates on any of that stuff. I know that we have had a lot of conversations with the team about it. We've taken a lot of your feedback to the engineers to kind of help them understand like what it is that people are asking for, and ways that it would be different than say like the post focus functionality, which we used to have that you could stack things with, but no updates yet as far as if it's going to come or when it would come, if it is even going to come, that kind of thing. But obviously the second we make any kind of updates, we'll always talk about them here, so you'll know that you'll get the information here. See here, Tails says, weird one, is there any plans to add lab or RT LUT support to the G97 G100? Honestly, no idea. I don't know if those cameras, because they're the previous generation processors, I don't even know if they can do the stuff that we're doing in the newer engines. A lot of the stuff that we've done, that we've updated, that we've come out with are reliant on the new engine that we've developed, because we can do a lot of different things with it. We can push it a lot further than we could on the previous generation Venus engines that we used before we moved into L squared. They are a completely different architecture as far as like how they work, so not everything that's new will ever be able to be brought back to the older cameras, and that's kind of one of the things that happens as technology advances. Sometimes you do just run into those situations where there just really isn't anything you could do to the older cameras. Let's see here. Touch to focus and tracking fix, question mark. If you could clarify what you are looking for me to answer there, I can try to address it. But we do have touch to focus. It's just a different way than I think what people might be used to from other brands. So iCandy says, I have been having some issues using third-party TTL flash with my S5II. There's shutter lag for the TTL pre-flash that happens. Do you know if Lumix will come out with a new firmware? So TTL and flash and how the external companies work with it, or third-party companies, it's more reliant on the flash manufacturer than necessarily the camera. Pretty much all flash manufacturers are third party, and I use quote unquote third party, are either reverse engineering flash protocols to claim compatibility, but that doesn't mean that the brand is actually validated that it works. So in some cases it's more communicate with the flash company and point out some of these issues with them, because it's more likely an issue on their side. The reason why I bring it up that way is that with the S1 Mark II, the S1 Mark IIe, and the S1R Mark II, we've actually validated flashes with Godox. So the X3 trigger, as well as the V1O, so the O variant of the V1 flash, they've been validated on our system to function as expected. So TTL, high-speed sync, like that stuff has been validated to work. It's the start of a new process, like we do with media and some various accessories, where we go through and we kind of test and validate and make sure it works. It is a lot to do, so don't be surprised if it takes a little bit of time to kind of get through those process and kind of understand, you know, what works, what doesn't work, who's actually using the correct protocols, where are they missing, that kind of thing. So with the S1II series, we've started this process. So, you know, not everything's going to be like available immediately. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit of time. So, yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Question regarding the S1II. Does the DR boost mode affect the noise behavior across the ISO ranges? Yes. So in the S1 Mark II, the dynamic range boost function. So let's actually take a step back here. So in modern cameras, and I'll use the S1 Mark II as the example because that's what the question's based on, there are two native ISO ranges, which means there are two circuits on the sensor that have a native ISO. That means there's no extra gain being applied to, at a base level, There's no additional gain being applied to those ISO values to raise the ISO. That would be 640 and 5000. So you have 640 and 5000. When you're working in a dual native ISO circuit system like the way we do, where you can choose which circuit you want to use, you're going to have a noise profile that's going to ramp up until you hit the next one, and then it drops down, and then it ramps up again, effectively. What that means is that as you go up in ISO, you're going to see noise levels increase and all that kind of stuff. And that's cool, but you're only using one circuit. So you'll see that noise increase before you hit the next ISO range, and then it drops and then it rises. Dynamic range boost takes both of those ISOs and runs them simultaneously. So we can use a high ISO value to get the noise-ish kind of performance. And then we can take a low ISO value and we can use that for the dynamic range and the highlight information, that kind of thing. And then the camera muxes them together, which means it takes that individual frame that's processed twice and it combines them together. When you do that, you get the benefits of the cleaner looking image and the extended ISO performance, or the dynamic range performance, through the entire time that it works. Where it changes and where you see the differences with the way these systems work is that your native ISOs change. So at 640 ISO, when you're using individual circuitry, you've got a 640 and a 5000. When you use dynamic range boost, it kind of splits the difference a bit. It goes to a 1000 ISO, which would be the lowest you can go on the system. So at 1000 ISO, you now have cleaner than you'd have at 1000 without it. And it's the same story through the whole range as you go all the way up to the maximum value that you can, because you're taking both signals and simultaneously putting them together. Obviously, and I think this is something that I think Gerald actually talked about this in his video, was that that's not a free lunch for when you want to get the best image quality out of the camera, or get to that 15 stop rated dynamic range. What the trade-off is the readout speed, or rolling shutter. When you use that mode, you are going to not double your rolling shutter, but you're going to increase your rolling shutter, because you have to process that particular frame twice. So if you're getting anywhere, around 15 milliseconds in some of the testing that I've seen, in the standard ISO ranges, you're going to be upper 20s when you're going to be in DR boost. And all of this depends on the various different aspect ratios you film and frame rates and all that stuff, and we're not going to go into that. I encourage you to go look at some of those other videos if you want to get that information. S1IIE has a really good write-up about it and demonstrating. Gerald did an awesome video on it too, talking about that stuff. So I encourage you to look at those. So again, it's not a free lunch. There are certain situations where that's going to be incredibly beneficial to get that cleaner overall noise behavior and get the extended dynamic range, versus I'm going to be really, having heavy camera movements or quick camera movements. And I'm not saying like whip panning, stuff like that. But if you are going to be a lot more run and gun and emphasizing on the run side of it, maybe you turn that mode off for those things and you still have, class leading dynamic range performance according to S1IIE. But then if you're going to be doing static shots or talking head, or you're doing establishing shots for a, scene that you're creating, you have that ability to flip that on and use it to get that extra dynamic range should you need it. So I think that might be a little more than you were asking, Nicholas, but hopefully that clears up or helps for a lot of people. All right. Before we jump into the demonstration, because I think I'm a little bit long on the time for what I mentioned about the live streaming, I want to talk about some of the cool things that we've actually done for the studio here, some of the updates. So I had already talked last week about the new light that I'm using from Zhiyun. This is the Kambaki Molus X100 RGB. Yes, X100 RGB. This thing, it's an awesome light. Super excited to have it. It's replaced my Elgato's. I think it gives a much better look to the overall stream. But I've also updated the lights that are positioning in the back. And I've got one of them here, which we're going to adjust here so I can show it on the stream and not blind people. So the other one that we got, and I have two of these. These are the which ones are they? It's in the description of the video. These are the MC20Cs. So these are the new ones that they also sent over. It's got the grid on there. It's got the RGB look. It's magnetic for clipping on there. It's got a diffuser on it. And then I've got the barn doors for setting it up. So huge shout out to Zhiyun for sending these over. I am really excited about these because I really like the performance we get out of them. And yeah, we've got them. I can control them all through my app. So now I can adjust my main light. I can adjust my side lights, all that kind of stuff through the app. So I put a link down in the description below if you're interested in looking at these lights. Again, huge shout out to Zhiyun for sending them out to us so that we can use them and we can help elevate the Lumix Live platform here. The other exciting thing that I want to talk about here is actually the lenses, or the lens that I am filming on right now. Obviously, over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about how I've been filming with anamorphic lenses or live streaming in anamorphic. And I know it's not everybody's, personal cup of tea. Not everyone likes it, but I do. And since this is my stream, I get to do what I want to do. But we've been using these for the longest time. I've been using the S1IIE 1.66 Saturn series. Now these are great. They're manual focus anamorphic lenses. They're ultra small. They're compact. They're lightweight. Carbon fiber front end. They're fun lenses. These are awesome lenses to work with. But just this morning, I was super excited because I just received this. And huge shout out to Matt Fraser for sending this over, and huge shout out to S1IIE for sending these over for us to be taking a look at. This is the 20mm T 1.8 autofocus 133 anamorphic for L mount. So that means that this lens will autofocus and perform on cameras like the S1 Mark II, the S1 Mark IIe, basically all of our L mount cameras. And I've got the S1R Mark II here with it. Like I said, I just got this lens this morning, so shout out Matt for sending this over. It's awesome getting it just in time for the stream. So I've got this that we're going to be talking about a little bit throughout the stream. The reason I bring this one up is actually because the lens that we're filming on, this is the 40mm T1.8 autofocus 133 anamorphic lens for L mount. So right now we are using autofocus with anamorphic. In this particular setup, we can see I'll do the classic, hey look, it flares, it's anamorphic, woo. But I am actually using this right now on my S1 Mark IIe over USB-C into my computer for the webcam functionality. So our cameras do USB UVC now. So we've got the stream coming out of this. I'm doing 1080 60 frame. It's in a 4K display here because once you desqueeze it, you're actually relatively kind of close. I think it's actually closer to like 1440p. So we've got a really nice, solid performing optic here, and probably the best part about it is if you've watched the last couple streams, I've had to like kind of sit back and show you the optics or whatever it is I'm trying to show you here, where this I can actually put it up into the frame and I can show you with autofocus on this anamorphic lens, get the look that I kind of like, where this is a 40 but I'm getting a much nicer field of view but with the nicer compression, and be able to take a look at it. So at least for this week, we're going to be using this here, and we're going to be kind of talking a lot about it. Next week's live stream is going to actually be a recorded stream because I have an overlap with another meeting. So I'll probably be talking about these in a recorded session, but outside, away from the studio, to show you different things about like the crops. Because these are Super 35 designed lenses, but I am using the 40mm right now in the full sensor area on the S1 Mark IIe. So you'll see that there's a little bit of vignetting up in the corners, but it works for something like this. If I'm, wanting to be able to do talking head kind of things, or I want a little bit more room to frame with, but I can flip this into Super 35, and then be able to take this out handheld because we've got our stabilization system for it, and I'll show you that in a second on the camera as well. So huge shout out to S1IIE for providing these. It's an awesome welcome to the L-mount Alliance. And I haven't even talked about the fact that I also have this one too. This is their 85mm f1.4. That again is also autofocus on the L-mount system. So we're going to talk about those at least this week and next week as well. I have 2 links down in the description below as well if you want to take a look at them, because they're actually really affordable as well. At least I think they're really affordable. The 20mm right now for L-mount is running at $699 as of today, which is $522. And then the 40mm is also running at $699 as well for the various different mounts that it's available. So again, links down in the description if you want to take a look at those lenses and kind of get into anamorphic filmmaking. Again, I can't stress enough how cool it is that we've got autofocus for these. I know there are others out there, and I'm working on trying to get, other manufacturers that have autofocus anamorphic lenses for the L-mount to be able to talk to you all about them and show them. But we're going to look at my S1 Mark II on the side here, and we'll show you some of the tools that we have as well on how to make them work. Okay, cool. I think that's the kind of updates to the stream that we're doing here. All right, let's talk about the live streaming question that came up. So one of the questions was, how do you live stream from the Lumix cameras? And it's actually quite straightforward. So to start with, if you want to live stream from our cameras, you're going to go into the settings menu, and you're going to go into the streaming functionality. So under the streaming functionality is where I can turn this on. This is going to prop the camera and say like, hey, you got to connect into a wireless network. Now, I don't have this camera connected into a wireless network, so I'm not going to go through that process because I should have preloaded it, but I didn't. I don't want to enter my password in while we're live on a stream. But once you connect it to a wireless network, which can be your mobile device hotspot, it can be your home Wi-Fi, whatever it is, you go into streaming setup, and you're going to have a couple of different options here. So if you're doing wireless, you'll have the ability to do up to full HD 60 frames per second for a broadcast. So this lets me, full HD at 2 different bit rates. So 8 megabit per second if I need a little bit, like if I don't have as strong of a network connection, 16 megabit if I want a really high bit rate based on the specs. Truth is, YouTube recommends around 9 megabit per second, 8 to 9, so you're fine at 8 or 9. 16 gives you just a less potential of artifacts for the streaming, and then we have the full HD at 30 frame, and then we also have a 720p option as well. So if you're really looking to just be able to stream and you're not really too worried about ultra high resolution or a high resolution version, you can do 720p as well. The other thing about this is that this ties into the Lumix Lab app. I didn't have that all set up for this stream, but I'll kind of explain it here. So the Lumix Lab app, just like Lumix Sync, allows you to wirelessly connect your camera to your app, so to your phone, and 2 different ways of making this work. You can either wirelessly, so it's Wi-Fi from the camera to whatever the Lumix Lab app, and then the Lab app takes and codes, puts it up through your cellular network or your home Wi-Fi or internet Wi-Fi, whatever it is you're connected to. That's where you can link into YouTube via RTMP-S, and I gotta be very clear about that. It's RTMP-S for streaming, or you can put in an RTMP-S link to it as well, which would be a custom streaming key. If you do it wireless, you're going to be full HD, full HD 60 frames per second. If you hardwire your camera to your phone and open Lumix Lab that way, you'll also be able to do up to 4K 30 for your live streaming. The reason for this is that you have a much stronger connection to the device, you have a much stronger connection to a modem, which would be basically your internet device, which would be your phone. So it gives you an extra step to be able to do a higher quality stream should you want. But outside of that, the only other thing that you really have to pay attention to is if you're going to be streaming to something like YouTube, one of the things that most people may not recognize is that YouTube by default streams in RTMP, just standard RTMP. So when you're looking at the stream key or the stream URL, it's going to say RTMP : / and then the info. If you try to stream from the cameras now directly to that, you're going to get either certificate errors, or you're going to get an error that kicks back and says that it can't connect to it, because YouTube's expecting a non-secured RTMP stream. So you have to make sure that you configure YouTube the correct way, or if you're going to be manually entering in an RTMPS field, you have to make sure you're entering it in as an RTMPS for the network connection. It's not really a big difference as far as like what it actually is doing to the camera. It's a much more secure, it's a more secure platform. And if you don't have those two things correctly entered, it won't stream for you. So make sure you're doing that. On some of the older cameras, I think they still have RTMP, but RTMP as well as RTP and stuff like that is starting to become basically something that can't be used because of various different regulations in Europe. So a lot of stuff you're seeing over time is starting to have to remove some of those functionalities because of local laws and regulations. So if those are issues for anybody, I encourage you to talk to your local governments and make sure, because we have to follow what regulations and things like that are set for. So outside of that, that's pretty much it for streaming. Once you click record, because it's an RTMPS stream, when you click record on the camera or you connect into it, that should trigger your live stream to go. If you do it like this, where you schedule a live stream and you're entering in the live stream key, then you do have the option on the back end for YouTube to say like, hey, auto start or auto stop. Usually I recommend turning on auto stop. This way, if the stream disconnects, it gives like, I think it's like a minute or two before it automatically says, okay, there's nothing else coming through. Let's disconnect and stop this stream. But this allows you to be able to go in. If you do it that way, you have to remember that you have to go into YouTube's backend to start streaming. If you have auto start on, as soon as it starts getting the signal from the camera, it will trigger and start the broadcast out. So just keep that in mind as you go through the different tools for it. All right, let's take a look at some of the other questions that came in. So Conrad says, oh, wait, no, I'm further up here. Drbus Cross. Rhett says, I forgot if I've asked, but for Lumix Flow, can you simply rate clips as good or bad without a shot list? Seems like a great way to import only the best clips for quick turnaround. So technically you can. I mean, you would, with Lumix Flow, you're just going to create a project. You don't have to actually do a shot list. Just create a project and have a single folder. And as you're recording, just, start, stop recording on it, and then it'll let you tag it. So you don't have to use the actual full-blown storyboarding or shot list or anything like that, because it'll do it for anything that's recorded when it's connected for it. So yeah, it actually works out pretty well. You just have to remember to kick out the XML file. Rhett also says, did you have more info on how the DR boost works in stills mode? So at this point, we don't have any update as far as DR boost for stills on the S1 Mark II. I don't believe I don't believe it runs in stills mode, because I don't think it has to run in still mode. Conrad, as a Vinci Resolve user, the S1 Mark II does ProRes RAW, which isn't supported for video editing, correct? I really like the camera, but prefer to edit in Resolve. Is there a workaround? So there are different things that you can do. There is a service or a software that you can download that you can convert to, and actually I see Dan Hopkins is here and has answered that. Yeah, you can convert it to Cine DNG with different compression levels, and then you can edit there. So that's definitely something you could take a look at for it. Or I just started using, because I'm a Premiere, I know this doesn't really help you, but I work in Premiere, and after reading an article with that Cine D wrote, I just downloaded Octopus RAW, which gives you RAW controls in Premiere. So I don't have to work in Final Cut to have like all the controls. And so far, I've really liked working with it. For like the one time that I've shot anything in RAW, I don't do anything that needs it, so it's not really an area that I capture in. But yeah, so. iCandy says, thanks for the clarification. This was on a Godox V100. Oh, good to hear the S1II process is going ahead. Yeah, and just to be clear too, iCandy, it's the V1 is the one that we've got the validation for. I don't know what the status is of the V100 or V10 or whatever the other model is. I think the V100. But the V1 has been validated on the system. Red says mandatory request for MP4 Lite on MP4 Lite 60. Yep. We've got a lot of people asking for that. Where did we go? Hi, Sean, Lumix USA. Any reason why we don't have panorama mode on modern S cameras? I use it all the time in the GX85. Honestly, I don't know the exact reasons behind it, but I think many camera companies have had to remove it from their cameras. I don't know if there's like what the underlying thing would be, but I just know that it's not something that we have anymore. And I think a lot of other companies have had to remove it as well. So, question number 2, regarding the S1IIE, other than the new recording modes, are there any other changes in the actual image that come out of the sensor compared to the S5 II? I'm probably not the best one to, necessarily comment on that, because I'm not a colorist. I just use the cameras and the images across the board from all the cameras I really enjoy working with. But there are some subtle tweaks between the way the sensor characteristics are in the S1IIE versus the S5 Mark II and the Mark IIX. Remember, the S1 Mark IIe is designed as basically an update from an S5 Mark IIX, not an S5 Mark II, because you have all of like the all intra options and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the image quality goes, they should be pretty comparable between the two. So in the end, it really comes down to, is the viewfinder important to you? Is the ability to record to CF Express? Are the video improvements important to you? Is the upgraded shutter, which can do 10 frames per second mechanical, important? Are all of those things important to you for that kind of camera? The S5 Mark II and the Mark IIX are still current cameras. They're not going anywhere. This is just a step up into the tier. So this is the least expensive option if you're going into the S1 Mark II chassis design, and into that S1 series. And the S1 II series is, kind of really hallmarked around that chassis design. The upgraded viewfinder, the, multi-angle, flip vari-angle rear screen, CF Express, SSD support, all that kind of stuff together. So it's a whole package for that. Autofocus anamorphic. Oh, okay. I'm finally catching up. USB-C, but RTMP also. So USB-C is just a USB-C video feed. So this goes into whatever device. So if you're someone that needs to use it as a webcam, or you want to drop it into like OBS like I'm doing, just USB-C out, and then it comes up as a UVC camera. Mighty says it's a 133, so I guess he's in 16:9. Yes, this is 16:9. I'm in 4K, full sensor width and height. We broadcast at 30 frames, so we're here, and now you've got the setup there for it. So, Oasis says, so now you have to rotate 2 dials to switch between the photo and video mode in the new models. First change photo video mode, then rotate the second dial from aperture manual. I am glad you brought that up, Oasis, because I want to actually talk to you all about this. So, what is referenced is that actually, I'll do it this way, because I can show the top of the camera now. So, what is referenced is that now, because we have the photo-video switch here, if I have my camera set in A, which I'm doing now, so this is my photo mode, is aperture priority. When I switch this to video, it uses this dial as what my exposure modes are. So you would think that means that I have to go here, well, help if I'm doing it the right direction, I'd have to go here so that I can capture in manual exposure. You don't have to do that at all. You do that if you want. I don't like working like that, but the engineers thought about that. So if you want to change that, you go into the menus, you go into the custom menu, and then for here, you go to exposure control in PASM. What you'll see here is that when you are in the photo mode, so I have the dial set to photo, it will respect what the mode dial that I have set is. So if I have it on PASRM, it will change it in photography for PASRM. But I have my camera set up so that when I flip that switch to video, because I'm always shooting in manual, it overrides the mode dial and it just puts the camera into manual. So now when I make those changes, I don't have to touch my dial. It means that when I'm jumping back and forth, because I'm an aperture priority still shooter, great, I flip the switch into manual video, now I'm in manual, I flip the switch into video, now I'm in manual video, and I don't have to touch the dial at all. So this was a very cognizant addition and change. We knew that there were going to be users that have been used to using creative movie mode, where you basically would do the same thing. You switch it into there, and then you could tell the camera in the menu system, hey, I want you to be in manual or aperture shutter or priority. Now it's the flip of the switch, and you do the same thing, it's just in a different menu, so it's not on the mode dial itself. So Oasis, I hope that helps, because that makes a massive change on how to use the camera, because in my time of using the S1R2 and the S1II and the S1IIE, it is so much faster than what the previous way was doing it. So Mighty says, yeah, those cost a house. I missed a couple of other questions here. So it says, how are you desqueezing in real time? I am desqueezing in real time because I take the USB-C signal out, and this will work for HDMI as well. It goes into OBS, and then on OBS, you can transform the image that you're looking at. So actually, I'll do it here. I'm going to do this live while we're actually looking at it. And just remember what my value is here. So let me copy this. You're going to see the screen get real weird. So this is what is coming out of the camera. Right now you see it's squeezed. I'm in 16:9, and this is the squeezed anamorphic ratio. It's a 1:3:3, so it's not a really heavy squeeze on the frame. And this is what the camera would record if I were recording internally. But what you do in that is I go into the transform for that particular look that I want to go with, and I take the scale for the horizontal dimensions, which in this case is 1920, and I multiply that times 1.33, which then gets me, well, my copy didn't work, so let me do the math again, which gets me 2553.6. So if I do 2553.6, now we have the de-squeezed ratio, and it's working for the live stream here. So now I can do it this way. So this makes it super easy if you want to play around and try it. I think I forgot to charge this one. Yes, I did. So one of my lights is out. I forgot to charge it. So we're gonna go only with a blue background for now. I forgot to charge the red light. But yeah, so this is how this works for it. Now the cool thing is that if I change the lens on my S1 Mark II that we're looking at, I'm going to put the 20mm on here. Come on. All right. Let's get this all set up. So the cool thing is that you also have a number of cool functions when you're going to be doing anamorphic with our cameras. So for one, I can come in and I think it's actually under... Yeah, so to start with, we have image stabilization functions for anamorphic lenses. So I can come in here, do anamorphic video, I can set this to 133. And then on top of this, we do also now have the high EIS, which is going to be added in for anamorphic on the S1II, S1IIE and the S1R Mark II. This lets me add additional electronic stabilization for anamorphic shooting. But we also have, this one is under the setup menu, we also have the ability to desqueeze on the camera's display. Or is it under this one? Shows you how much I actually shoot with anamorphic as far as video goes. So you'll see that we also have an anamorphic desqueeze option. Now, because I'm doing HDMI out, and actually because I have proxies on as well, so let's turn proxies off. You'll see that I have the ability that I can come in and I can desqueeze it, and what this will do is this desqueezes on the camera itself. So you won't see it over the HDMI feed, but you'll see it on the camera is desqueezed. A nice thing that you'll have is that if I am using an external monitor, right? If I'm using Blackmagic Video Assist, or if I'm using an Atomos Ninja, those monitors have desqueeze built into them. So you're going to do the desqueeze on that part instead, and they'll have 133, they'll have 2.0. I think they all have like 1.5 or 1.6, I mean. So you would desqueeze on the monitor, but the camera display will also give you a desqueezed view as well. So you have that capability as well. So we have a lot of tools in our cameras for anamorphic functionality. In fact, I don't think anyone else has better anamorphic tools than we do within the cameras. Let's see here. Any news on Lumix Lab? I have no updates, no news on that stuff. Using the Godox V1.0 with current firmware as an on-camera flash for the S1R2 causes mechanical shutter to drop FPS. It can burst. Seems like 5 or 6. Any help? Flash is verified. I'll ask the engineering team, see what's up with that. Rodrigo, will we get any updates for S52X? I have no idea about updates on cameras or anything other than what we've already announced or talked about. No updates on when the Flow app is coming or anything like that on the others. Richard says DaVinci Resolve 20 beta is out right now and does support ProRes RAW. That would be kind of groundbreaking if it does, and I would have thought there'd be a lot more coverage of it, so I'm going to have to double check that, because I do have that downloaded. I don't use DaVinci Resolve often, but if that's true, hey, Matt Fraser, if you're watching, maybe take a look at that if that's true. That would be really, really sick. Let's see here. McCary says, hi, hope all is well. How's it going, McCary? Can any Lumix cameras do open gate clean HDMI out to be recorded into an Atomos Ultra at 30 or 60? And for Lumix is RAW out 422 for Lumix is RAW HDMI out 422 on any resolution or 420 converter to 422. Okay, JC. So you can do clean open gate out. The thing is that because of the HDMI standard, it's going to be 4x3 or 3x2 encased in a 16:9 3840 by 2160 output. That's because the HDMI video standard doesn't have a 3x2 ratio within the frame rates. RAW recording isn't actually a video signal. It is sent out as raw data. So 422, 420, 444, none of that stuff exists. It's raw data. That goes right into the Atomos or the Blackmagic recorder. And then those recorders are what will compile the raw data into ProRes RAW or Blackmagic RAW. When that happens, it's whatever the company's decided to do for the different platforms for it. So you'll have RAW, RAW HQ, that kind of thing. Blackmagic RAW, you'll have the different compression ratings. So that's the difference that you have there. Usually you'll be able to do, at least on the S1 Mark II, you can do 6K 30p in RAW over HDMI to do an open gate RAW recording. The video feed won't be the 6K height. It'll be 2160 high, and then whatever the ratio would be for the width in 3x2 instead of 16:9. That's an HDMI standard issue. That's not an us issue. So yeah. FC, is it easy to adjust highlight, shadow, and white balance if I record videos in Vlog if light conditions keep changing in a clip? How can it be done with multi-LUTs? It's a little more difficult on the fly. You know, you're not gonna do every single individual change in shadow or highlight as, you know, trying to bring everything back to the beginning. You're gonna have to make a choice and say, yes, these highlights are gonna blow or these shadows are gonna drop down, and you kind of find an area where your colors are all matched and your exposure looks right. So the thing that you most of the time probably would do more, and again, I'm a very amateurish video editor. Most commonly what I think you end up doing is that's where you end up you know, having B-roll or cut-ins or change angles or stuff like that, is if you start getting really, really crazy different scenes. The other things that you could do is that's where things like variable NDs come in, because you can kind of adjust on the fly, but then you're going to have an exposure value change, and you don't really want that in a single roll. So a lot of it more comes down to the editing side. FC is how you manage those different settings, those different shots. If you're shooting in a controlled environment, you're not going to have those problems because you're controlling the lighting. Like, I will never have that problem in here because it's literally just this light, the blue lights, the red case lights, and my monitor. But if I move certain things out, you'll see that I'm actually using my monitor as a practical. So it gives me a little bit more fill on the front because I've got a white web page open here that just is showing white onto the face. If I remove this, you see I get a little more contrast, not as bright on the front of me here. So, where did we go? Please bring out. No idea about future products, Bob. Subversive, I know it's not about the S1II, 2E, or 2460, but where are the compact? Look, people ask for that kind of stuff. Even if I did know, I wouldn't be able to talk to anybody about it, so sorry. Please bring UltraSync Blue timecode to the GH7. Please give us the 2:4:1. So I can tell you the S5II and the 2X aren't getting 2:4:1 because there are changes between the camera chassis, the processor, and all that kind of stuff that allowed us to do it on the newer camera. The S5II and the 2X, there's reasons why we couldn't do stuff like that in those cameras. Sorry if that bursts your bubble or sounds annoying. It's not gonna happen. Bluetooth timecode, that's something that Matt and I have asked about, if that's possible to do in the previous iteration of the engine, and if the Bluetooth hardware exists in the S5 Mark II, Mark IIX, or the GH7 or the G9 Mark II. That Matt or I aren't 100% sure of, so we wouldn't really be able to address that, but we can always ask them about that part. I think it's Shubham. Can we expect a vertical desqueezing camera for vertical anamorphic lenses? Hey, Matt, people are asking for it. Actually, I want to do... I got plenty of time here. Let me do this. Start a poll. How interested are you in vertical desqueeze for anamorphic video? I'm going to do 2 polls here. And I am very curious what you all believe, or not believe, what you all are interested in. It would help if I spelled anamorphic right. Desqueeze, close enough. this should be are you interested? All right, I just started a poll. Let me know what you all think about vertical desqueeze in anamorphic for video. It's an interesting thing. We have a lot of functionality that we do as far as anamorphic goes, and vertical desqueeze seems to be something that's getting a lot of interest and traction. So I'm definitely curious to see what your all's take is on it. But Matt says, "Sorry, Sean, no ProRes RAW support in Resolve latest beta." Damn it, that would have been nice. I said that probably would have been like really, really big news if it did, so I was surprised, but hey, you never know. Sometimes things sneak through. Damn it. That sucks. Alright. D-Creative, can you address what is the difference between Panasonic and Lumix? Nothing. We're the same company. It is one company. Panasonic is the electronics company. Lumix is just the camera brand within the company. Think of it as like Sony is the brand, Alpha is the cameras. Doesn't really work for Canon or Nikon. Doesn't really work for Olympus because their camera brand is under the company name. It's the same logic as like there's Panasonic and then there's Techniques. Not even that way. It's like Panasonic and Techniques. Panasonic is the company. Techniques is the product that we sell. So Techniques is the brand, the product, the marketing, everything that you see. That's our turntables and our high-end audio. Like my favorite set of headphones. These are the AZ100s. Like favorite set of travel headphones. That's what the difference is. It's the same company. I work for Panasonic in the consumer marketing division for Lumix within the company. So, ProRes RAW is supported on Windows. That's what's new. I don't know if ProRes RAW has been supported in Windows for a while. I know that the bigger update was that ProRes could be accessed in Vinci Resolve on a Windows computer. But that's ProRes. That's not ProRes RAW. Can you explain the difference between DR boost and dynamic range expansion? Sorry if somebody asked before. I don't have the full clear information that I can share about how dynamic range expansion works versus dynamic range boost. But DR boost it takes both gain circuits, single image, processes them through both gain circuits simultaneously, muxes them together to create a singular image. So there's no time lag between the two frames, all that kind of stuff. Just gets you the benefit of both of them. So, PSA, Adobe still does not show the S1R2 RAW files properly, presents as two stops under, also does not show built-in JPEG either. Yeah, something is still seriously wrong with Adobe's RAW support. I honestly, it's even more to the point now, and I've been an Adobe user for years. I can't use Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw anymore. I have to be using Capture One. Aside from the fact that I like Capture One, and when you first install it, you can set it up to have your editing pane and all that stuff in the similar position as Lightroom. Yeah, I just use Capture One now, and I probably never going to go back to Lightroom now after this. I really hope they fix it. I know there's a lot of users out there that are, kind of really annoyed about this, that they claim they've got final RAW support, but it's still not right. But this is an area where all of you, the users, are the best way to get that information to Adobe. I've mentioned it. I know our team has mentioned it, so it's up to them to fix it. So, unfortunately. Okay. Before I go into more questions, and I've got actually a decent amount of time today, so we can run the stream long. There's another thing I want to talk about here. So, there were questions, and actually, let me change this back to the 24 to 60. So, there were questions that had come up in a couple of other locations about HDMI connected recording and things like subject detection. So we're going to talk about that now, and we're going to actually walk through them so that I can dispel a lot of the crap that's being thrown around online, because a lot of it's wrong. So, to start with, you have subject detection available when you have HDMI attached in a ton of frame rates, resolutions, and even into higher frame rates. So, let me turn this off so I can look at the back of the camera. Cool. So to start with, we are in video. Right now, I am in C4K 60 frames per second, full sensor width, and obviously I have an HDMI attached. When I go into my focus options, I can press up and I can turn subject detection on. So 4K 60 with HDMI attached does have subject detection. I have all of them available. I have our urban sports. I have the animal, face and eye, car, motorcycle, and bicycle, as well as train and airplane. So we have all of the subject detection options available. If you want to shoot faster, even if you have an HDMI attached, I can go to 96 frames per second. Please don't break ATEM switch. Thank you. So we're at 96 frames per second. In 96 frames per second, I also have subject detections. So I can come in, I can change these around. I've got the options there. If I want to do 4K 120, if I go to C4K 120, C4K 120 does lose subject detection, but it is still using phase autofocus. This is when you have an HDMI attached. If I take the HDMI out, you'll see that some of these things change. So if I need to do high frame rate and I'm recording in 4K, I can do up to 96 frames per second in camera and I have an external monitor attached. I can do this with subject detection available and it works. So that's rumor or comment one dispelled online. Where it changes is if I have to go in and I need to record at the higher frame rates. So if I want to record at, say, 5.9K, 5.9K with HDMI, I have subject detection. Nope, I didn't actually select 5.9K. Let me actually select 5.9K. 5.9K. Let's do 5.9K 60p. 5.9K 60p with an HDMI attached is still using phase detect, doesn't have subject detection. If I go in and I change this to 30p, which is what we broadcast at, I have subject detection. If I change this to 48, I don't have subject detection. So 5.9K, so the things that are over 4K, at over 30 frames per second is where that changes. But again, you're still using phase detect autofocus. So just put the box where you want it and it's going to work. When I take the HDMI out, everything still works fine. I have my subject detection. I have all that kind of stuff. It works. So I just wanted to clarify that because there's a lot of people that were saying that, 60p HDMI attached, there's no subject detection at all, or the most egregious one is people that are just like, there's no autofocus or phase detect at these higher frame rates, which is BS. There is PDAF all the way up. So you still have PDAF in these modes. So it is there. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is if I unfilter these, if I go to any again here, there are 114 different recording options in this camera. It's a lot. I get it. It is a lot. So what we've always done in these cameras, knowing that like for some people, like, hey, I'm only going to ever want to record maybe 6K 30, maybe I'm going to want to do the 5.1K at 60p so I can have an open gate 60 frame option. Maybe I'm going to want to be in ProRes for recording, and I'm going to want to be able to jump into setup as ProRes or ProRes RAW. Cool. What we allow you to do is when you are looking at these options in the menu, you can just press the Q button, and this adds it to your My Menu option. So now I can just go to my menu, my rec menu, and only the ones that I care about or use or need to shoot with will be there. So I can toggle between them immediately. I don't have to assign that to a C1 through C5 or C1 through C5-5, because we can do up to 5 additional ones in the C5. I don't have to assign them specifically into that, so it's great. This allows me to be able to quickly go through, and even if I am in, obviously my standard video mode, if I come in here and I go to my quick menu settings, I can go into the quick menu and change, move this out of the way a little bit. Let's shrink this down a little bit. I can now set where right here, the rec quality option isn't just general rec quality. This is just the my list. So now I can just press the Q button, go to the my list option, and I can cycle through the different options that I want for my recording. So this allows you to, yes, we have a very filled, like I said, 114 different options in the S1 Mark II. This allows me to really customize that down to what frame rates, aspect ratios, what resolutions are important for your shooting style that you want to have quick access to. You don't always have to go through the full menu system to find which one you want or use the filtering overall. Although if you're going to do it the other way, again, you do also have that ability to come in and filter by pressing the display button based on frame rate, resolution, what codec do I want to record in, whether or not I want to use hybrid log gamma, or even if I need to be able to do proxies. It lets you tune that system down to best fit your particular style. All right, cool. We're going to end the poll on vertical desqueeze. Seems like we got relatively split decision on there. Sorry, Matt. But that's good to know. I do want to add one other poll. Is anamorphic D help if I could spell correctly today. All right, I just dropped another poll in here because I am very, very curious about this. So anamorphic capture for video has obviously become, it's a very big, cool thing, right? Anamorphic capture for video shooting. And obviously I'm using this lens now. And now we have autofocus anamorphic lenses, but we don't have those tools in the photography side. Are you, as users of these cameras, people that would want to see that in the equipment? Being able to see a desqueezed image for stills capture. I'm very curious to see how this goes, especially now that some of these lenses are like I said, the ones that I'm using right now are $699, so they're way less expensive than they were years ago. So, all right, let's look at a couple more questions here. If we are shooting in ProRes RAW, do we have the option to choose between Arilog C3 and Vlog, or does it default to Vlog? Our system, it is Vlog, but in RAW, it doesn't matter. It's just what your monitoring tools on the camera are. RAW footage doesn't inherently carry a color profile like that. So if you were to take it and you want to work in Arilog C3, when you bring it into your software, you're just going to transform it to Log C3. We use Vlog in the camera because that's what we have all of our tools for. So you can use monitoring LUTs, you can use the exposure tools, all that kind of stuff based on it. Yeah, that's it. If you're shooting in RAW, it doesn't actually matter what the camera is capturing because it's just capturing raw data. Can you comment on user selectable burst rates on the S1R2 as suggested by several YouTube channels? Yeah, I would like to see more burst rates for electronic. I don't know or have an update as to if or when or if possible that kind of stuff would come. You have no idea how many people's work depend on vertical shootings. Would be sick if you did that. Yeah. What is our strategy for the future? Keep making cameras. Other than that, that's not something for me to talk about. That would be from our director and our Japanese team. So, Red says I voted no by mistake. You were always able to change it. It's cool. Thoughts on the Blazar Mantis? I think it's a really cool lens. I think Matt and I have very different opinions on it because of the different perspectives of where we both come from. I think it's really cool. I really want to play with one. If they make an L-mount version of it, that would be really sick. But yeah, I think it's cool. I'm becoming more and more of someone that really likes the anamorphic stuff, but I don't film. Like, I don't create videos, or like, I am definitely not a filmmaker, so a lot of it ends up being lost on me because I'm never going to go out and like really kind of use a lot of this stuff. But I love it for this kind of thing because I just like the look and I want to do something different. But if we had it in the still side, I think it'd be totally different in my opinion. To the point where I've taken one of these, the Saturn series, wherever I put it, I've taken the Saturn series and I've rotated the mount 90 degrees before and shot vertical and then just manually done the desqueeze in Photoshop, and oh, it looks so good. Let's see here. S1 Mark II and S1R Mark II, do they have rolling shutter corrections for stills? I think the S9 has something like that implemented. That's a good question. The S1 Mark II, obviously because it's a much faster sensor, just inherently has less rolling shutter than standard sensors because it's partially stacked. S1R Mark II, I honestly don't know. That's something Matt and I can ask engineering team though. Matt Danew says, do you think we will ever get subject detection for OpenGate 5.1K when recording HDMI? And I think I got all the subject tracking info right in my video. So I guess, Matthew, like, the thing to remember is that, again, OpenGate, if you have an external recorder, it has to force the camera into it has to force the output to 16:9, so it's a lot of extra processing. So I don't know, honestly. It's an interesting question we can ask the engineering team though. Is it possible to record 4K OpenGate 2430 and 60 FPS? I don't need 8K or 6K or 5K. Is this possible, or do we need Lumix to give us a downsampled version? So you have, honestly, it's the 5.1K in OpenGate. That's what we've got. I get the comment about not needing, 8K, 6K, or 5K, and I understand the logic there, but you are not going to save anything by recording in 4K versus 6K or 5.1K, or 8K is a little bit of a stretch because now you've got double the resolution. It's double, or is it 4 times? Yeah, whatever. From a storage side, you're not really going to see any difference there. From an editing side, you are definitely not going to see a difference there between 5.1K and 4K. 5.1K is just where it's at. The sensors, at a certain point, it kind of doesn't make sense to go that much smaller in resolution because you just take a 5.1K, throw it on a timeline, and scale it to 4K, and your 4K is going to look better anyway. Yeah. I would like waveform for stills from Ulrich. So would I. I would love to have waveform for stills. I'd rather see Lumix invest time to give us the option to shoot stills while shooting video. It's an interesting idea. The difference, Jamie, is that honestly, like, we used to do that years and years ago. No one ever used it. So when people don't use features, and statistically we do like surveys and studies and all that kind of stuff, and people say that they're not using it, it's very hard to ever bring some of that stuff back unless people are overwhelmingly stating that this is something they need in a camera. It gets really, really hard in that kind of area for features and capabilities. Jim says, Panasonic had their own RAW for their cameras for years. Is there a chance it could be implemented in cameras in the future? It'd be great alternative to ProRes RAW. Confidently, no. The Vericam stuff was through the codec back, which was uncompressed DNG. No, you're not gonna see it. It's ProRes RAW or Blackmagic RAW. Doesn't make sense to be developing something else that then also has to go through the conversations of making sure that it works in all those different programs. Look at all the other companies that have tried to do stuff like that and it's failed. And even the promises of others that have been added, like, hey, are they going to have these different RAW formats? Yeah, it's just not. Yeah. All right. Let's. Was there other things I wanted to take a look at in the camera and chat with y'all about? I think we actually did really good getting through a lot of these questions. We're going to close the Desqueeze poll here. Yeah, so, hey, Fraser, anamorphic Desqueeze, people wanting for still shooting, it's a pretty overwhelming yes response from people, so yeah, that's definitely a really awesome thing to see. I would love to see that, and we're going to pass that information on to our engineers as things that you all have been saying you want to see. Cool. So, 2Z, being able to set different picture profiles for stills and video would be great. We do have that. And this is the same for the other cameras as well, before the S1II series. If I go into the older cameras, it was called Creative Video Combined Set. In the newer cameras, this is the photo video separate settings. White balance, ISO, shutter speed, aperture, metering mode, AF systems, and photo style can be chosen to be separate. This way they don't share across the two different modes. So if you're in the previous cameras prior to the S1 Mark II series, you're going to go into the photo video separate settings and you're going to change all these to the camcorder icon. If you're in the new cameras, by default, it's all set to separate, so that all your stuff stays separated there for it. A lot of solo filmmakers, including myself, work with really compact setups to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Because of that, I'm hoping to avoid using an external monitor just to desqueeze footage. Would really appreciate it if you could look into this. Well, so our camera does do desqueeze on the back of the camera if you're not going to want to use a monitor. We have that in the cameras already. I just can't show it because it doesn't desqueeze over HDMI. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding what your question is. Definitely let me know if I'm misunderstanding your question. Matt says, I'd say even 45% yes for vertical is good. That means 55% are wrong. Okay, Matt. I kind of agree. I mean, vertical desqueeze would be kind of cool. Let's see here. Why does the shutter not close when switching lenses on the S5IIX and others with a mechanical shutter do? So we talked about this when we launched the S1R Mark II. So the S5 Mark II and the Mark IIX and basically all of the cameras prior that don't have the ability to close the shutter, basically it doesn't, the shutter blades themselves are designed to be very thin, very lightweight, so they can move very fast with the motor designs to move them. That has the negative side of that they're not as heat resistant. So if I, like today is a really nice bright sunny day, if I were to like put my camera down or, kind of set it and I don't have the lens cap on and that shutter is closed, light focuses through the elements, and I could literally burn a hole through the shutter blades. Your sensor is much more resilient for that, thermal and all that kind of stuff. So the older cameras, because of their shutter blade design, are never going to get the ability to close the shutter mechanism when you're changing the lenses. The S1II series, we redesigned the shutters. Now they're carbon reinforced, so basically it's carbon infused into the shutter blades. and we changed the motor design so that they can cope with the heavier blades. And I use heavier as a relative term. We're not talking things that are massively different. But because of that, they have a much, much higher thermal threshold. So if I were to do the same thing with these blades, they're not going to warp, they're not going to, burn or things like that, like you're way more likely to see in the older shutter blade design. Now, if you really leave any of these cameras, even the other brands that have them, I'm sure in the manuals they all say the same thing: don't expose to direct sunlight, all that kind of stuff. That's why. So the older cameras, it's not going to get it. The newer cameras with the newer shutter designs, that's why they can do it now. When is Lumix Flow coming to S1II? I don't have dates for you. According to YouTube video in the S1II's camera seems to overheat much later compared to the S1R2. If at all, does the sensor make all the difference? Sensor is definitely a component to what you're trying to do. It's the sensor, it's the resolution, the bit depth, the bit rate. All of those things combine along with CF Express cards or SD cards or an external SSD, your power source. All of these things contribute to thermals within a camera. The S1 Mark II, I have never had it overheat on me. And again, take that for what you will, because I don't go out, and granted, I shoot here in Austin. I haven't had it. An S1R2, it's well within what our statements in the user's manual have about potentials for thermal. It's going to be a little more environmental to think about on that one camera, but yeah, that's why we've got choices. Let's see here. I don't have any comments about the other G series cameras. Would love to see Vericams back in the game. It would be kind of cool to see Vericam, but honestly, I have no idea. Cool. And then RET, automatic subject detection, something you're aware of, people wanting. I think it's a great idea, maybe even being able to prioritize humans over other stuff. Yeah, Matt and I were actually just talking about that yesterday, in getting that information over to the engineering team, because we've had a couple people ask us about that. We have a lot of subject detection options now, and now with PDAF we get a lot of, a lot more performance out of our system than we did in the years past. Right. Yeah, we're about 20 after now. All right, cool. So I think I'm going to wrap the stream up there for this week. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to S1IIE for sending these lenses out. Again, we've got the 20 millimeter T1.8. This is an autofocus anamorphic lens. Hope I do the branding right. This is a T1.8 autofocusing anamorphic lens that I'm going to be shooting with for a little bit here. And I'll probably do next week's recorded stream now that I've got everything here to be able to, kind of show some stills, sides of how to use it, and some photo stuff with it, or video stuff with it as well. Again, huge shout out to Zhiyun for providing these awesome lights for the stream. So this is the MC20. The link is down in the description below. So that you can take a look at them for yourself. I think these things are awesome. They're app controlled. It's magnetic on the back, so you can mount it up in places. Go take a look at some of the other people's videos that have actually, in depth covered them. But these things are awesome. You can also check out the light that we're using for the main part up here, which is the Cam Mackie edition of the X100, the Molus X100 RGB. Again, super cool. I love this freaking light. And yeah, other than that, if you've got more questions or you've got suggestions or you want to sound off about things you want to see us do, drop it in the comment section of the video after we're done here. That just helps me see it later, and we can go through and I can reference into the engineering team. Yeah. We, as I mentioned, we're going to be recorded next Thursday for the live stream. Unfortunately, I have a conflict. I have to do a training session that unfortunately overlaps the live stream. We'll be live the following week after that, which is going to be, what, the 5th? We'll be live again on the 12th, and then we will be recorded on the 19th. If you live in the New York, New Jersey area, or you are planning to be at B&H Build, swing by our booth. Matt Fraser, myself, and I believe Neil Matsumoto will all be at the show. So definitely swing by. We would love to see you all there. It's going to be kind of nice to get back up to the New York area. Yeah, other than that, hope you all have an awesome rest of your day. If you don't already, or if you haven't already, give us a like on the video if you liked the conversation. Subscribe if you don't already. Go check us out on Discord. It's discord.gg/LumixUSA. We have a lot of really fun conversations over there and a lot of interaction. If you want to learn from us, I do some office hours over there as well. So if you want to chat with us throughout the week, feel free to tag me. I'm Sean at Lumix over there. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of fun stuff. Otherwise, get out there, create some cool stuff, and we will be back next Thursday with a recorded session. Yeah. Later, guys. Bye.